Ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka.
The first episode of smoking sous vide. So our intent here is to mix sous vide and smoking in some of the recipes, and some recipes will be smoking and some recipes will be sous vide. So what we're going to do today is the ultimate Montreal smoked meat. So what we've done, we went out and bought this beef brisket from Costco. So you can see there, it's kind of one of the larger briskets you'll find in Canada. But what we're going to do is start by just opening that up and getting it out of the bag. So we'll take this over to the sink. Just open that bag up. Get it out of that plastic as best you can without letting it sit in the sink. Okay, I'm going to take that right over the cutting board. Okay, so now what you've got with the brisket is you're going to have two muscles in here. You'll see the thicker cap or piece here. It comes down to a nice thin muscle down here. We want to separate those. But you'll also find there's about a quarter of this that's going to be large chunks of fat. We want to cut most of that off because you really want some fat in the meat, which is embedded. You don't want too many big chunks because that'll just not taste very good. Okay, so we're going to just start cutting some of those big fat chunks off. And a bit of meat, that's usually as far as you want to go. A little deep. Spend more time doing this if you want to cut a little finer. And you can feel the bigger chunks. They're rigid because this thing's just come out of the fridge. So the fat has got a really strong rigidity to it. So you're going to lose about a quarter of the weight to all this fat. You don't want too much on there. It's also going to allow that cure that you're going to do to the meat penetrate a little better. Okay. So one thing about Montreal smoked meat, it's a cure process followed by a rub and then smoking. So we're going to walk you through all that so you'll be able to do this and really impress your friends when you take this meat over to a party, pull it out when you have guests, or even just have it as a meal. Okay, so there's most of the fat off the one side. You'll see there's some bit of fat there, and you can see that it goes into a bigger fat layer there. Watch, this is a very sharp knife, so we're going to not cut too close towards our fingers. Now, as you peel away that layer, you start to see that other muscle film there. So you can see it here. There's a fat layer right through the meat. It goes down here. We're going to separate that. So as you come down through there, down through there. And you're just going to take that and keep cutting down through. Make sure you don't get into the meat. So you can see here how it's going. Okay. See that one chunk of meat? Now we're just going to trim that up. Nice big thick layer there. You can just feel how rigid it is. Find that this is pretty easy to do after a while. Every meat is a little bit different. So you'll get one that has a nice clear, visible, high fat layer track, and then another one that's a little harder to find, but you can figure it out. And the way we're doing this, there's not a lot of risk here. Like if you completely screw it up, just as long as you got some larger chunks of meat. Just getting those large chunks going. See, you're losing about a quarter of the poundage here. One thing you don't want is a big vein of fat through your meat, like a nice 1-inch thick piece. Just you'll be eating fat, and you really want meat. Not too bad. You can feel that. A bit of thick fat right here. Yeah, that's meat underneath. No, that isn't bad. So that's not going to result in anything other than a little layer of fat underneath, not a big chunk or vein going through it. Shave it down some more here. So I'm thinking this piece is pretty good. We're going to go back to the bottom piece. Now here's that layer of fat. You can see how thick it is here. It's about a 1-inch thick piece of fat. So we feel it, goes down to about here. We're going to start here, angling towards where we know it's 1 inch. Take that off. Okay. You can see there's not much fat left there. There's enough interconnected fat like through the meat that you don't have to worry too much about a big cap of fat on this kind of meat. Okay. Over. One more chunk here. Just gonna position that meat so too dangerously. That's pretty much it. You know, there's no feeling of too big of a chunk in there, right here. Feel some? Just kind of that. Little vein of fat like that going across the meat isn't as bad. Yeah, it's going to just be a little string of fat in your meat. Okay. that's how we prepare it. Yeah, you can go around it again, keep trimming as much as you want, but this stuff's okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make up the cure, and we're going to rub it all over, and then we're going to cut these in a couple of manageable pieces and get them going. And I'll show you that in a second. Okay, so I made up the cure. So this cure is mostly salt, black pepper, and ground coriander. So you know that's the major ingredients to this cure, and it has the pink salt in it also. So what we need to do is, I like to vacuum bag my meat when I'm storing it in the fridge, because it's going to be, the cure's going to be put on a dry cure, and then we're going to put it in the fridge for 5 days. So to avoid any leakages and all that, the heavy duty vacuum bags work really good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my vacuum bag and say, okay, well, it's that thick. I am going to cut this one in half. I'm going to angle the cut, but got it. Okay, so now I can get those pieces in a vacuum bag. Same with this one here. That one's not going to fit in, so I'm going to cut that in half. And that also takes out the fact that this is a thin piece, this is a thick piece. So we're just going to slice that. Get that into 4 pieces. Then we're going to take our cure, and we're going to take that away from the stove and just generously sprinkle some on and rub it right on into the meat. So you can see, you're going to get the edges. You're going to make sure that no piece of that meat is left without some cure on it. The recipe for the cure you'll find below the video, and you know, just follow that precisely, and you're going to have some tremendously delicious Montreal smoked meat when you're done. So that piece is done. Now you don't want any too much on there, just nicely coat it all over. Okay, put that just on a cookie sheet. Go to the next piece. Doing this in a pan just so you don't get it all over, so your wife won't get mad at you for having salt everywhere. Kosher salt tends to go everywhere. Big grain of spice. Just a note, that's my wife on the camera, so she heard that. Oops, not fully detached. One thing I found, it's almost impossible to find ground bay leaf, which is one of the ingredients in here. So you can see I got my spice grinder here, and I just put some bay leaves in there, it's coffee grinder, spice grinder, and just grind that up. Yeah, doesn't take long, but it's one of those things that's hard to find. Make sure there's no exposed red meat that's in it. See, see how nice coated that is? Yeah, we've got the pieces all done up here. Don't see any, you see red piece of meat like that, just put some here on there. Any gaps. There, rub that in a bit, and that's it. You know, so now what we're going to do is we're going to vacuum bag that. Get our area a little clear here. All this stuff, and we've got to create some vacuum bags. So I like the Food Saver vacuum bagger. It's nice and handy, and the vacuum bags are solid. Okay. So what we're going to do, nice bag there, clamp that down, I'll make a bag. Many different vacuum baggers out there. They all pretty much do the same thing. 4 bags, so I got 4 pieces. Do open up each bag. Here's this. Piece of meat in there. We'll seal those up. We'll put those into the fridge for 5 days, and we're going to turn them each day, so that it's not sitting in the liquid. Just on one side, so it allows it to get more evenly distributed here. I'm just going to position that in each bag. That way, flat. This is the messiest part. Right here, getting all the ingredients in the bags. Okay, at that point we can get rid of our gloves. And take a clean dishcloth. Just make sure to get the salt onto the edge. Bag sealer. See no juices running up here. It's good. So that's nice and ready to cure. Bag. And that seal off. Make sure there's no kinks in that bag, otherwise it won't seal. Seal once it gets there, so especially if you start to see liquid come up, that'll affect the seal, so you want to just make sure that you get most of the air out of there. You can also use freezer bags, like the extra large freezer bag. I like the Ziploc ones, or the some good heavy duty ones anyways. You don't want these leaking all over your fridge. Press the seal button, just all the air is out of there. Good enough. Okay. Now I'm going to use a Sharpie and I'm going to write right on the bag what day it is, because sometimes you can't remember what day you started it, and that can get a little confusing halfway through the process. It's not going to matter too much, but you want to leave that 5 days in the fridge. Okay, so we're going to put that in the fridge and come back to it in 5 days, and I'll show you how to wash it and put the rub on and get it smoked. So it's been 5 days now. The Montreal smoked meat has been brining in the fridge. So we're going to pull that out. Sorry, not brining, curing. So you can see it, because it's in the vacuum pack, it's still nice and tight, and it's got a good seal to it. So cut this into smaller chunks to fit in the vacuum bags, but it's all ready to go. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut those open, and we're going to put them in water, and we're going to soak them for 2 hours, and we're going to change that water every 30 minutes. What that does is it gets that the cure off of it, especially the pink salt, which is mildly toxic. So you want to rinse off as much of that as possible now that the cure is actually done. So what we'll do is just cut these open, put them in our bin here. And then we're going to fill it with nice cold hot water and let that sit for half an hour. Gotta work that meat to get that cure off of there. What that does is, if you don't do this, you'll also get a very salty meat. And if you want to get as much of that salt and cure off, the rub has no salt in it. It has more than enough salt in it already. So I'm just going to fill it up with nice cold water. Give it a good rinse. It's probably important to change out that water maybe a little quicker on the first one and leave it in cleaner water a little longer. Okay, so we'll let that soak for 30 minutes, then we'll change out that water. Okay, so the first set of meat been resting in water for half an hour now. So you can see how dirty that water is, right? That's got the all the spices and that. We're going to drain that. More cold water running over it. Just give it a rinse. Now you can see, because of the pink salt, how clear that meat is. That's been like 5 days in the fridge, and it still looks nice and red, right? So that's the curing salt. That's what they call pink salt. You can buy that off Amazon if you're in North America. You can buy it from specialty stores. We're just going to refill this with water, work that cure out of the meat as much as possible, and let that sit for another 30 minutes. I like to turn the piece of the meat over. Just keep working them. Get as much out as you can. You can see that water is still kind of murky. You find that by the end of this process, that water is going to be relatively clear. That's what you want. It means nothing else is coming out of that meat, and that'll get the most amount of salt out. Okay, we'll see you in 30 minutes. Okay, so this has been the second time we filled this. drain it again. This will be the 1 hour mark. You see the water still has a color to it. We're just going to rub that meat, rinse it off, try to get as much of that cure out of there as we can while we go. Nice cold water. I find the gloves are handy. Gloves are handy because I'm soaking a bit from that. So this is mostly to get the pink salt out of there and the salt, which is going to make you way too salty if you don't do this step. It has to be done to the point where the water is clear. So you can see that the water is still fairly murky. So we're going to let that sit one more time. Kind of press that meat. Let's just leave that for another 30 minutes. And sometimes I've even done this like an extra half hour just to get that meat nice and clear when it comes out. So, okay, we'll leave that again. Okay, so this has been an hour and a half now. We're going to drain this one more time. You can see the water is still fairly colored underneath. Right? A lot of spices coming off still. Drain that as best we can here. Refill that again. Nice cold water. We'll leave that at least one more time, and then we'll see how that water comes in. Still a little colored, so we might do that one more time after. Okay. Okay, so this meat's been now being rinsed for an hour. So, or sorry, 2 hours now. So this is the 4th time. So we've done every 30 minutes to change the water. It's still a bit discolored. So what I'm going to do is going to drain as much of the water out of there as possible. Going to refill it one more time. So, you're trying to just get it so that it's not going to be discolored water anymore. That means there's nothing coming out of the meat anymore. So flip that meat each time. And one thing that I've done as a tip before is you don't have to leave the first couple the full 30 minutes because that's when most of the stuff is coming off. So you can change the water maybe every 15. But you have to change the water at least 4 times and make sure that that comes relatively clear. This is an important step. Again, it will turn out much too salty if you don't do this step. So don't take any shortcuts on that. You want to get it so the water is relatively clear. There you can see there's not much discoloration in that water. So it's starting to show me that we're close, right? So I can do that one more time. You can even just leave it another 20 minutes or so, and it looks like that's pretty close to being done. Okay. Okay, so this has now been the 5th time for the meat, and we're going to drain that one more time. And you can see the water only is very slight color discoloration now, so that's showing a good amount of rinsing. So drain that, and what we're going to do is we're going to do up the rub, and we're going to put these on the smoker. So what I'm going to do next, I'll make up that rub. I'll put the ingredients down below the video so you can make it up yourself and you don't have to worry about writing anything down. And while I'm doing that, I'll also get my smoker going. I have a pellet smoker, which I'll show you, and then we'll get this onto the smoker with the rub. Okay? Okay, so this meat's been now fully washed. I cleaned my tub because I'm going to be putting the rub on in there. What you want to do is just take some paper towels and blot most of the moisture off of there. So in order to get a good crust on your meat, nice smoke into it, you want that water off so it's not kind of fighting that process. So you want to just towel dry them. Let's see, that's towel's dead. Another one. There's a lot of little steps to Montreal Smoked Beef, but none of them are all that overwhelming. It's only 2 days worth of working on it out of a week. You're going to find you're going to get lots of nice Montreal Smoked Beef out of this. Okay, so here's the rub. Again, the ingredients for this are below the video. Okay, so we've got the rub. We're gonna generally sprinkle that on there. You're gonna find you don't have a lot of extra rub for 20 pounds of brisket that we've got here. And you're gonna rub that in. Now you'll see one of the main ingredients there is paprika, so you're gonna see that reddish hue come out, orange. Get that all over there and you rub it in. You want a nice even coat. You don't want any lumped amounts. Again, you're going to get all the edges. There's a little red meat showing. Showing us coated. That's kind of what you're looking for right there. You know, that looks a little less right there. Here. I always recommend using vinyl, the rubber gloves for this. I like the Costco ones. They got a little more thickness to them, and they stop you from the temperature is insulated a little bit with those. See, we're already running a little low on this. But always is enough just to get it. Like I say, you don't want to go on thick with this stuff anyways. Got some stuff in the bottom here, you can use that. If you need to make up a little bit more, you always can. Find that by the time you're done, and you got some nice evenly coated pieces of meat like that. That one's all done. This one could use a little bit more, so I'm going to make up a little bit more, put that onto it, and then we're going to take those out and put them on the smoker. So we've got the extra rub on there. I ran a little low on this batch, and you can see that it, has a nice even coat across that meat. So the smoker, this is a Green Mountain Grill pellet smoker, and it's set to 235 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to open that up and take our thickest pieces of meat and put them down at the hot end. And we're always going to put the fat side up, right? So this side has the most fat. This side has the most fat. This skinny piece, medium piece, this nice big lean piece. Move that over. Here you can see the majority of the fat's on this side, so we're going to put that side up. And the last little piece goes in here like that. Okay. And rearrange these as you want. This is again where the vinyl gloves come in handy. You don't feel the heat as much. Okay. We're going to put our handy dandy meat thermometers in there. I got a dual probe meat thermometer. We're going to put one in the thickest piece of the meat. That's this one right here. I'm going to go right in the side, right into that middle piece there. Other probe, I'm going to go into the second, probably the thinnest piece of meat, which is this one. I'm going to go right in like that. So I'm going to close that up, let that sit until it gets to 165 degrees Fahrenheit for the thickest part of the meat. And then what we'll do is we'll wrap those up in some foil, put a little juice in there to keep them moist, and we'll cook them to 180. And then we'll have to bring it in and let it rest. So it's good for a few hours right now. Okay, so our first piece of meat is done up to 165 degrees. So that's this one right here. So we're going to take this out, put that on foil. We're going to pull that meat thermometer out of there. Wrap it all up. Okay. And then holding it up, shining side of the foil in towards the meat. And we're going to take a little bit of apple juice, probably about a quarter of a cup of apple juice. Put that on there. Wrap that up tight. And you're going to double wrap that. Don't want it to leak. Put that back in. You can take that one meat probe that you had, you can stick it in one of the other pieces of meat here. So let's just go thickest piece here. We'll get the meat fork. Turn that around here. So get a good angle on it. Stick that right in there. Turn this one that way. There, we're in good position now. Over here, you can take our handy dandy meat thermometer, portable one, and just stick it in there and see what it's at. It's still at 136, 146. So that one still has time to go. So we've got these two that are our next ones that'll probably be done next. So we're going to close that up. Just let those get to 165. Okay, so the second piece is done now. We're going to take this, same thing, put it in the foil, take that meat thermometer out of there, put that up for later use. Over, put some apple juice on it. Just wrap that up. Nice and tight. That apple juice has to get out of there. You want the steam in that apple juice, so you don't want it to escape. That one back on. We're going to check this one here. That's still showing 152. So we got some time there. And that, check it. It's getting a little brown on the side. I'm just going to flip that. You can see that it's got one good char on the one side, but now it's going to get a little bit more on the other. Same with this one. We're just going to flip it. This one, this meat thermometer, right in that one now. piece of meat is now up to 165. We're going to pull that off. Get that thermometer out of there so we can wrap it. Doesn't even have to be on top. Get it in there. This one's the biggest piece. Out the bottom. Okay, leave that in there. Over here, I'll do a quick check of one of the earlier ones we did. It's at 173 going to 180. Okay, so we're good. So our first piece of meat is completely done. Meat thermometer, we're just going to double check that. 180. Okay. Pull that one out. Ooh, smoke. Put that one over there. Take this piece out, put it in a nice metal pan, leave it intact. So we've got the last piece on here. One thing that you'll see me do is I use a precision thermometer and check it. You'll find that it varies different across the meat. So you want to make sure that it's at least 180 degrees. You'll feel it. It'll be a lot softer when it goes in versus when it's below 180 degrees. So there we've got anywhere from 173 to 195. I'm going to pull this one off and I'll show you that it might be a little tough on one side, but the other stuff is all 180 degrees throughout at the minimum. And this one's kind of our experiment where I'll show you that. But you'll find that the barbecue thermometers aren't that precise. So you're going to want to always check with a precision thermometer. You know, it's not that big of a deal, but the better you can get it, it'll be nicer. I want to make sure it's all done. So just gonna put my smoker down. I'm gonna take this into the house and let it rest for probably most of the night. And tomorrow, while it's nice and cold, I'm gonna thinly slice this on a meat slicer, and you'll see how good it is. I'm gonna let it rest in those juices that are in the foil. So I'm not gonna take it out of those juices. Just gonna leave it as is. I'll probably put it in the fridge tonight just to make sure it's preserved, and I'll show you what it's like tomorrow. Okay, so now that was the moment of the ultimate test here. We've got this meat that's been sitting in the fridge all night. It took about 3 hours to cool down to the point where I could put it in the fridge because I've got a big mass of meat here. You could separate it out if you want to cool it faster. So now we're going to open this up. The juices that are in here, we're going to keep those. We're going to bring this over to a bowl over here. Try to salvage those juices into the bowl. As you can see, this is that big piece that we had. So we're going to put that there, just put the foil here. Drain those juices into the bowl. Now you can save it, put it in a little bit of juice, or you can just keep it dry. That's your choice. So I got the meat slicer out. We're gonna slice a bit of this and see how it tastes. If you've got too much salt in that, you might want to not put it through that. So, okay, so I'm gonna slice a bit here. I do it nice and thin on low settings. It also depends on how hard you push on your meat slicer, what the thickness is gonna turn out. But let's just give that a try. So you can see there's that little layer of fat in through there. Pulls nice. You know, we can taste that. We can do that because we're not in a restaurant. That is good. Okay, so not salty at all. It's really good. You know, you look at the quality of that. There's that layer of fat through that big piece. We're gonna just keep cutting it nice and thin like that, and you know, cut the rest of these up, and I'll show you if I find anything else. But this one was a little undercooked at one end. It didn't quite hit 180. When we get through there, we'll see if there's any inconsistencies. So I'll get back to you. So we finished cutting that first piece of meat, and this is the thicker end that was cooked a little less. It's a little less tender. So you can see that it's still plenty good, but you know, just leaving it only to 175 instead of getting to the 180, it just doesn't quite have that pull to it. Whereas, you know, you get into the part that was thinner, you know, it pulls a little better, has a little more nicer texture. You know, this piece has some good marbling through it. And we're just going to put that into that juice, toss that up. And it keeps that in a nice moist bath kind of thing. So you can freeze it like this, pull that out, and it still stays nice, moist, and delicious. So I'm going to cut up the rest of those, and I'll show you the end result and how much we get. But this is just one small piece, so you can see you're going to get a lot of meat here. We're cutting this piece, and I just wanted to show you one thing while we're cutting. You can see the layer of fat in there, but see how that meat just kind of pulls apart like a spider web kind of thing. You know, it's very nice and tender. You can see in the meat when you're cutting it. I had to cut this piece to fit it on my slicer here, but you can see that kind of texture pull apart. That means you're going across the grain, right? Whereas here, where I cut it with a knife, you can see it's kind of going with the grain. So that's not going to be the texture you want. So you want to slice it across this grain to get the maximum amount of tenderness. You know, and you know, you can see here where there's been too much fat left on one of the pieces. I did this just to kind of demonstrate to you. You know, you can still get a layer of fat. That's a fair amount of fat in a slice of meat. You can just rip that off if you want when you're using it, or you can, you know, leave it on. Up to you. You know, it depends on how you want to. You know, this is no right or wrong way of doing this. It's a matter of you're going to slice all this up, and then you're going to vacuum bag it and freeze it to the point where you can pull out luncheon meat anytime you want. Okay, I'll show you when we're all done this, and I'll bag up a couple just to show you what I do. Okay, so we're done all of our slicing now. I had to transfer it to a bigger bowl, so this is the biggest bowl I have. You can see how much meat we have, right? And now that's tossed with the liquid, so it's, you know, it's dry. And you know, we continue to keep trying to cut across the grain as much as possible. You know, you're not going to achieve that 100%. You can see the layer of fat. You know, you don't want too much of a layer of fat. You know, so that's why we trimmed it off as much as we could when we're doing it. You'll also see, you know, that's a nice piece of Montreal smoked meat, and you know, you taste that, it's just gonna melt in your mouth, and it's so much flavor. So this is by far the best Montreal smoked meat recipe that I know of, and you know, it's an incredible thing to have. So we're gonna freeze that 1 pound bags. Vacuum bag it just to the point where it, you know, has the air out of there. We're going to pull those out of the freezer whenever we need luncheon meat. You can also just take this to a party, put it on a plate, and people will just eat it up. It'll be the hit of the party. So this is how you do it. At least how I do it. You know, the recipe's down below. You've got all the processes. So good luck smoking this and getting through that. And we'll be back with some other recipes where, you know, next recipe I'm going to do will combine the smoker and the sous vide to the point where you don't need a slow cooker. You can do this if you've got a busy work schedule and get stuff in the freezer and come home to a nice, delicious meal. Okay, that's all for this time.